Bengals training camp is right around the corner, and what in the world are they going to do with Trey Hendrickson? It's time to answer your pressing questions. Hi again, Bengals fans. John Sheeran of A to Z Sports Cincinnati here, and for the first time ever on this channel, we're going to do a little Q&A. We got a couple days left until training camp officially starts. I believe by the time this video is posted, rookies will be reporting to training camp, but now is the time to flesh out anything that you guys still have on your minds as real football starts up in Cincinnati once again. And I do appreciate that the handful of questions that I did get all kind of intertwine with one another on the same side of the ball. So without further ado, let's get to my favorite question, which is not even a question at all, from above 639, sign Trey! In exclamation points. Again, not a question, but we'll take it. As you all know, the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson are still working out, negotiating a multi-year contract extension. Trey is not willing, or at least he's saying right now that he's not willing to play on the one-year deal that he is under contract for. It would only pay him about $16 million. And this question is extremely timely because earlier this week, TJ Watt got a 3-year, $123 million contract extension from the Pittsburgh Steelers. It will pay him well north of $100 million in guaranteed money. Now, I don't believe that this deal from Watt is the new bar that Hendrickson is trying to eclipse, just like I didn't believe that $40 million per year was what he was trying to get over when Myles Garrett signed that deal back in March. What is interesting about this, and we discussed this a little bit in our crossover episode with Rob Gregson for A to Z Sports Pittsburgh, is that Watt and Hendrickson are in the same stages of their career. They're both on the other side of 30 now, and the fact that Watt got a 3-year extension and so much guaranteed money from an organization that typically doesn't do that outside of really him and their history, I think is notable, and it works against the Bengals. The Bengals have been hesitant all offseason to give Hendrickson that multi-year extension that he's after for. They don't have much of a leg to stand on anymore now that Watt got his deal. So I do think that Hendrickson gained some leverage here, and that may just speed things up here in general. Or on the more pessimistic side, it could just confirm that the Bengals don't want to enter those waters, and this just gets even uglier. But moving on to our next question from Wicked11777. What the hell is going on with our defensive line? As it pertains to Hendrickson, you can't assume that he's going to be out there in training camp without a new contract, and the same goes for Shamar Stewart, the team's first-round pick, who has yet to sign his rookie contract. So let's just assume that both of those guys are not going to be on the field when training camp begins. The starting defensive line in that case is going to be Myles Murphy at defensive end, TJ Sladen at nose tackle, BJ Hill at defensive tackle, and Joseph Osai at the other defensive end spot. The immediate depth at defensive end consists of Cam Sample and Cedric Johnson, and at defensive tackle, you got Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson. And once you add in Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart back into the equation, that's probably the 10 guys that are going to make the 53-man roster for week 1. Unfortunately, it is a position group that often gets banged up during training camp at the preseason. The Bengals saw that a ton last year when they suffered a lot of injuries at defensive tackle, and they were very depleted with that group entering the regular season. So I am interested to see how many reps that the undrafted rookies and Dante Barnett, Eric Gregory, Howard Cross III get in training camp, or maybe they just have to get on there because of injuries. But on the edge, there's not really anyone else that I'm expecting to really step up. I mean, Isaiah Thomas was here briefly last year on the practice squad. Raymond Johnson III has kind of bounced around on the practice squad for the past couple of years. But I really do think that if both Hendrickson and Stewart missed extensive time in training camp, it is imperative for the likes of Murphy and Osai to stay healthy and take advantage of those starting reps. We all know Hendrickson is going to be starting at right defensive end once he comes back, but the starter on the opposite side is very much up in the air, and I think it's going to be the better one between Murphy and Osai, depending on how the next 6 weeks goes. And our last question comes from Jacob Berry, LO3BM. Would Cam Taylor-Britt and the staff consider moving him to one of the safety positions? The short answer is no, but I do think you will see Cam Taylor-Britt used a little bit differently this year compared to years past. I do think that Taylor-Britt is a better scheme fit for what Al Golden is going to do with this defense compared to what Luna Rumo did with him, just because of Golden's tendencies in running man coverage, and I think that's a better fit for Taylor-Britt's skill set. Anarumo typically had his cornerbacks locked on one side of the formation, but when you run a lot of man coverage, you have guys following receivers when they're in motion, and I think you will see that from Taylor-Britt more often this year. As far as playing safety goes, I think they want to give Geno Stone another chance, and they're definitely going to give Jordan Battle every chance to run with that starting spot as well. And if you're Taylor-Britt, there's just no way that you would want to be changing positions during a contract year. He did play a little bit of safety in college at Nebraska, but that was several years ago, and he's been developing a cornerback ever since. Taylor-Britt's main objective is just to start somewhere in the secondary, because that was not a given with what happened last year when he was benched twice. But that's going to do it for our first Q&A. We might do this again when the entire offseason wraps up at the end of August, so around that time, hit me up with some questions, and maybe they'll get answered.